The conference hall stretched out like a massive dome, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Kreltak of the Vrin Collective sat in his designated seat, his forearms folded across his chest. The metallic scales that covered his body reflected the soft blue lights from above. Around him, delegates from dozens of species chatted, argued, and made deals. This was the Galactic Trade Summit, held every cycle to discuss commerce, treaties, and peaceful cooperation. Kreltak found these meetings boring. The Vrin were warriors first, traders second. But his people needed allies, so here he sat, listening to the Quillian representative drone on about mineral rights in the outer sectors. His secondary eyes watched the room while his primary eyes pretended to pay attention to the speaker. Then the humans arrived. Ambassador Chen walked to the center platform with confident steps. She was small compared to most species in the room, but humans always carried themselves like they owned whatever space they occupied. Her dark hair was tied back and she wore a simple blue suit. Nothing fancy. That was strange. Usually when someone had big news, they dressed to impress. "Thank you for your time-honored delegates," Chen said, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity wishes to announce a new initiative in interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange." The room quieted down. Humans were still relatively new to galactic politics. Only 200 cycles since first contact. Everyone was curious what these strange mammals would do next. Chen smiled. "As many of you know, the United Colonial Navy has been downsizing after the peace accords. We've been decommissioning older vessels to focus on exploration, rather than military expansion. One such vessel was the UCNS Indomitable, a Titan-class supercarrier that served with distinction for 50 years. Kreltak knew of the Indomitable. Every military power in the galaxy knew about it. That ship had ended the border wars single-handedly. It carried 200 fighter craft, enough missiles to crack a moon, and shield systems that could withstand a sustained bombardment from an entire fleet. The Vrin military had studied it extensively, looking for weaknesses. They had found very few. Standard protocol, Chen continued, would be to strip the ship for parts and recycle the materials. But humans have never been very good at following standard protocol. A few species in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable. Instead, we decided to convert the Indomitable into something the galaxy has never seen before. Chen pressed a button on her tablet, and a massive holographic image appeared above the assembly. It showed the supercarrier, but transformed beyond recognition. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, I present to you the Starbound Palace, the galaxy's premier floating resort and entertainment complex." Silence filled the chamber. Complete absolute silence. Kreltak stared at the hologram. The military vessel he had studied, feared, and respected had been turned into what exactly? The image showed gardens, restaurants, swimming pools, theaters, and what looked like shopping districts. The hangar bays that once held fighters now displayed waterfalls and tropical environments. The weapons arrays were gone, replaced with observation decks and landing pads for civilian shuttles. "This is madness," whispered the Thraken delegate sitting near Kreltak. The Thraken were warriors like the Vrin. They understood the value of a warship. To see one destroyed, no worse, transformed into something frivolous, it was almost offensive. Chen seemed to enjoy the shocked reactions. "The Starbound Palace offers 5-star accommodations for all species. We have gravity adjustments for every type of physiology, atmosphere-controlled environments, cuisine from 60 different worlds, and entertainment options ranging from zero-gravity sports to classical human opera. The grand opening will be held in 2 weeks at Celestia Prime." More silence. Then slowly delegates began to whisper among themselves. The Quillian representative raised a tentacle. "Ambassador Chen, forgive my confusion, but why? A military vessel of that class represents billions in resources and decades of construction. Surely there were more practical uses." Chen's smile grew wider. "The Quillian are practical people. So are humans. We looked at the cost of building a new luxury resort station versus converting existing infrastructure. The Indomitable had the size, the power generation capacity, the life support systems, and the structural integrity we needed. Plus, it sends a message." "What message?" Kreltak found himself asking, his voice carrying across the chamber. Chen turned to face him. "That humanity is committed to peace. We're taking our instruments of war and transforming them into instruments of culture and cooperation. The Starbound Palace will be a neutral ground where any species can visit, trade, and build relationships. No weapons, no military presence, just good food, comfortable beds, and the chance to understand each other better. The Vryn ambassador processed this information. It made sense from a certain perspective. Humans were always talking about symbolism and gestures, but something felt wrong about it. A warrior did not simply put down their sword and walk away. They kept it close, even in times of peace. All delegates are invited to the grand opening, Chen said, distributing holographic invitations to every seat in the chamber. I promise you an experience unlike anything you've encountered before. The Starbound Palace represents the best of human hospitality, creativity, and engineering. The invitation appeared in front of Kreltak. It showed a luxurious suite with a view of stars, a restaurant with elegant lighting and smiling humans in crisp uniforms greeting guests of various species. At the bottom, it read, "Where warriors become guests and strangers become friends." After the session ended, Kreltak stood in the corridor outside, studying the invitation. Other delegates walked past, discussing the announcement. Opinions were mixed. Some thought it was a brilliant idea. Others called it wasteful. The Thraken delegation was clearly offended, treating it as an insult to military tradition. "What do you think?" asked his aide, a younger Vryn named Shalnix. "Will you attend?" Kreltak considered the question. His people needed to understand humanity better. These strange creatures had appeared from nowhere, and within 2 centuries had become a major galactic power. They fought differently, thought differently, and clearly made decisions that defied conventional wisdom. "Yes," he said finally, "I will attend. If nothing else, I want to see what they've done to that ship." The Indomitable was a masterpiece of military engineering. I'm curious to see if humans can create something equally impressive with peace. But as he walked away, a thought nagged at his mind. Humans were clever, too clever sometimes. They smiled and talked about peace while their eyes calculated every angle. He had studied human history during his diplomatic training. These were beings who had fought each other for thousands of years before reaching the stars. They understood war better than most species ever would. Would humans really disarm such a powerful vessel completely? Or was there something else happening here? Something that the delegates weren't seeing? Kreltak decided he would accept the invitation. He would tour this starbound palace carefully, and he would keep all 4 of his eyes open. Because when humans said they had turned a supercarrier into a resort, he suspected they weren't telling the complete story. They never did. The shuttle descended toward the massive vessel floating in orbit around Celestia Prime. Kreltak pressed against the viewport, and even his usual stoic demeanor cracked slightly. The Indomitable, now called the Starbound Palace, gleamed in the light of the nearby sun. Fresh white and gold paint covered the hull. Elegant lights traced patterns along what used to be armor plating. Massive windows showed interior spaces where weapon batteries once lived. "It looks nothing like the combat footage," Shalnix murmured beside him, equally amazed. The shuttle docked at one of the landing bays. As the doors opened, Kreltak expected the cold industrial feel of a military hangar. Instead, warm air carrying the scent of flowers greeted them. The hangar had been transformed into a grand atrium. Real trees grew from planters. Water flowed down artificial rocks into a crystal-clear pool. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A human woman in an elegant uniform approached, her smile bright and welcoming. "Ambassador Kreltak, welcome to the Starbound Palace. I'm Sarah, your hospitality coordinator. If you need anything during your stay, just ask." "Thank you," Kreltak managed. His translator implant struggled with the concept of a hospitality coordinator, on what his mind still registered as a warship. Sarah led them through corridors that bore no resemblance to their military past. Plush carpets covered metal floors. Artwork from various worlds hung on walls. They passed restaurants where beings from different species dined together. The smell of cooking food made Kreltak's stomach rumble despite himself. "Your suite is on deck 7, Sarah said cheerfully. "We've adjusted the gravity and atmosphere to Vryn specifications. The minibar is stocked with beverages suitable for your biology, and the entertainment system has programs in your language." The suite was impressive. Large windows showed the curve of Celestia Prime below. The furniture looked comfortable and expensive. A small kitchen area offered various amenities. This was luxury that rivaled anything Kreltak had experienced. The grand opening gala begins in 3 hours, Sarah said. Formal attire is optional. We want everyone to be comfortable. If you'd like a tour before the event, just contact me through the room's communication panel. After she left, Kreltak examined the room carefully. His eyes traced structural lines in the walls. These walls are reinforced, he said quietly to Shalnix. Look at the support beams. That's not standard civilian construction. Maybe they didn't modify everything, Shalnix suggested. The ship's structure would still be military grade. Perhaps, but Kreltak wasn't convinced. They attended the tour before the gala. A cheerful artificial intelligence named Stella guided groups through various sections of the ship. Her voice was warm and bubbly, describing features with obvious pride. This used to be the primary mess hall, Stella explained as they entered a massive restaurant. Now it's Le Cosmos, our 5-star dining establishment. The head chef trained at Earth's finest culinary institutes and worked with specialists from 20 other worlds to create fusion cuisine that respects all dietary requirements. The space was beautiful. Elegant tables, soft lighting, and a view of the stars through floor-to-ceiling windows. But Kreltak noticed the windows were unusually thick. Blast-resistant, perhaps? They continued to the entertainment decks. There was a zero-gravity sports arena, several theaters showing productions from different cultures, a massive swimming complex with water from Earth's oceans, and even a small shopping district selling crafts from across the galaxy. What's behind that door? Asked a Thraken warrior, pointing to a sealed entrance marked, Authorized Personnel Only. Maintenance and engineering, Stella replied smoothly. Not very exciting, I'm afraid. Just power generators and life support equipment. We keep those areas restricted for safety reasons. But Kreltak noticed something. Stella's voice had changed slightly when answering that question. Less bubbly, more precise. The difference was subtle, but it was there. The gala itself was spectacular. The main event took place in what Stella called the Grand Arena, the former primary hangar bay. Thousands of guests from dozens of species filled the space. Human staff moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, offering drinks and appetizers. Ambassador Chen gave a speech welcoming everyone. She talked about unity, cooperation, and the beginning of a new era. Other ambassadors spoke about peace and cultural exchange. It was all very diplomatic and proper. Then came the entertainment. Human performers demonstrated various acts. Acrobats performed impossible feats in zero gravity, creating art with their bodies as they floated through the air. Musicians played instruments from Earth, creating sounds that resonated with something deep in Kreltak's chest. Dancers moved with precision and grace. But what caught Kreltak's attention was the staff. They smiled and served with perfect courtesy, but they moved like soldiers. The way they positioned themselves, the way their eyes constantly scanned the room, the subtle communication between them. These weren't ordinary resort workers. Having a good time, Ambassador? Captain Maria Santos appeared beside him. She wore a civilian suit with a name tag that read, Hospitality Director. Captain Santos, Kreltak said. Military records had identified her as the Indomitable's former commanding officer. Or should I say Director Santos? Either works, she smiled. I hope our facilities meet your expectations. They exceed them, he admitted. The transformation is remarkable. However, I must ask, did you truly remove all military systems? Santos sipped her drink calmly. The Starbound Palace is fully licensed as a civilian entertainment complex. All required inspections were passed. Every system meets galactic safety standards for commercial vessels. That's not what I asked. I know. Her smile didn't waver, but it's the answer I'm giving. Please enjoy the evening. As fireworks exploded outside the massive windows, creating brilliant colors against the black of space, Kreltak made mental notes. The decorative panels on some walls had seams that suggested they could retract. The observation deck had a rotation mechanism far too robust for simple sightseeing. The vintage military aesthetic in certain sections looked suspiciously functional. Later that night, back in his suite, Kreltak compiled his observations. Shalnix watched with concern. You think the humans are lying? The aide asked. I think humans are being very careful with their words, Kreltak replied. They've converted this ship into a resort. That much is true. But conversion doesn't necessarily mean removal. It might simply mean concealment. Why would they do that? Kreltak looked out at the stars. Because humans understand something that many species forget. Peace is a wonderful goal, but it requires strength to maintain. A resort that cannot defend itself is a target, but a resort that looks defenseless while actually being the deadliest ship in the sector, that sends a different message entirely. You're speculating? I am, and I hope I'm wrong. But even as he said it, Kreltak knew he wasn't wrong. He had studied humans too long. They were playing a game here, one that was far more complex than anyone realized. The question was, what would happen when that game revealed its true nature? Kreltak had a feeling he would find out soon. Humans didn't build things without purpose, and they certainly wouldn't waste resources converting a supercarrier unless they had a very good reason. He set his tablet aside and tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to one observation. Every single human staff member wore a uniform with plenty of pockets, and those pockets looked exactly the right size for concealed weapons. Yes, he would definitely keep watching. Something was going to happen. He could feel it in his scales. The third day of the grand opening week started peacefully. Kreltak had just finished an excellent breakfast in one of the smaller restaurants when the alarms began. They weren't loud or frightening. Just a steady chime followed by Stella's voice, still cheerful but with an edge of urgency. Attention guests. We have received a distress call from a nearby vessel. Please remain calm and stay in your current locations while we assess the situation. Around Kreltak, other guests looked concerned but not panicked. The human staff moved quickly through the restaurant, speaking quietly to people, offering reassurance. Their practiced movements seemed too smooth, too rehearsed. Kreltak activated his personal communicator. Shalnix answered immediately. Ambassador, I'm in our suite. What's happening? Unknown. Stay there. I'll investigate. He made his way towards the command center, or what used to be the command center. Now it was called the Operations Coordination Hub, and supposedly managed guest services. The doors were closed, but through the small window, Kreltak could see multiple humans working at stations, their faces serious. A security officer, Quillian, not human, approached him. Ambassador, please return to your suite. This is a restricted area. What's the situation? The Quillian's tentacles writhed with distress. A passenger liner, the Celestial Dawn, has been seized by Korax raiders. They're demanding 5 million credits in ransom. They've already. The officer paused, his skin changing to a darker shade. They've already killed 2 hostages to prove they're serious. Kreltak's scales tightened with anger. The Korax raiders were scum. Pirates who preyed on civilian vessels. How far away? 20 minutes at sublight speed. But protocol says we wait for Galactic security forces. They'll arrive in approximately 3 hours. 3 hours? More hostages will die. I know. But we're a civilian vessel. We have no authority to intervene. The Quillian's voice carried frustration and helplessness. Before Kreltak could respond, the doors to operations opened. Captain Santos stepped out, but she looked different. Gone was the friendly hospitality director. This woman wore a tactical uniform, black and efficient. Her hair was tied back severely. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Ambassador Kreltak, she said crisply, please proceed to the main arena. All guests are being gathered there for safety reasons. You're going to attack the raiders. It wasn't a question. Santos met his gaze steadily. I'm going to ensure the safety of all beings in this sector. Please proceed to the arena. Kreltak didn't move. I'm a military commander. I've led fleets. If you're planning a rescue operation, I want to observe. Santos considered for a moment. Observation only. You interfere and you'll be removed forcibly. Clear? Clear. She led him into operations. The change was shocking. The guest services facade had been stripped away. Wall panels had retracted to reveal multiple tactical displays. Human crew members sat at military-grade workstations. Everything gleamed with the efficiency of a warship bridge. At the center stood a holographic display showing the Celestial Dawn surrounded by 4 Korax raider vessels. Santos studied it with the focused intensity of a predator. Stella, status report. The AI's voice was completely different now. No bubbly enthusiasm, just precise military efficiency. Raider vessels identified as Corax light cruisers, shields at 70%, weapons armed. The Celestial Dawn reports 143 passengers and crew held hostage. Raiders have explosives planted at critical points. Time to GSF arrival? 2 hours 53 minutes. Santos nodded. Too long. Begin combat protocols. Authorization, Santos 77 Delta. Acknowledged. Indomitable combat systems activating. The entire ship seemed to shift. Kreltak felt it through his feet. A low hum of power building. Around them, more panels retracted. Displays that had shown restaurant menus now showed weapons targeting systems. The decorative lighting shifted to tactical illumination. Communications, open channel to all guests, Santos ordered. A young human man nodded. Channel open, Captain. Santos took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried through every speaker on the ship. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, this is Captain Maria Santos. I apologize, but we're going to have a slight change in our scheduled programming. A passenger vessel is under attack nearby and people are dying. Galactic security forces won't arrive in time, so we're going to help. Kreltak imagined the panic this announcement would cause among the guests. Santos continued. For your safety, please proceed to the main arena on Deck 3. My crew will guide you, I promise you're not in danger. The Starbound Palace, or as she was once known, the Indomitable, is quite capable of handling this situation. Thank you for your patience. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. Tactical, begin combat systems checkout. Engineering, I want full power to shields and weapons. Flight operations, prep the interceptors. Wait, Kreltak said, his mind reeling. Interceptors? You still have combat craft? Santos glanced at him. Did you really think we got rid of them? Those entertainment venues on the flight decks have retractable floors. Underneath, 2 full squadrons of fighters, ready to launch in under 5 minutes. The decorative panels, retractable armor and weapon covers. The observation deck mounts a naval railgun, 2 railguns actually. Santos smiled grimly. You're quite observant, Ambassador. A crew member called out, Captain, Corax raiders are hailing us. They're warning us not to approach. Ignore them. Helm, intercept course. Maximum sublight. The ship surged forward. Kreltak grabbed a railing for support. This was no lumbering resort vessel. The Indomitable moved like a predator, fast and deadly. Raider vessels are powering weapons, Tactical reported. Targeting solution acquired. Hold fire. Launch interceptors. I want those raider ships disabled, not destroyed. There are protocols even in combat. Interceptor squadron launching. Through the viewport, Kreltak watched as sections of the ship's hull opened. Combat craft shot out, their engines burning bright. They were sleek, deadly, and moving with perfect coordination. Stella, establish electronic warfare protocols. Jam their communications. Acknowledged. Deploying countermeasures. The holographic display showed the interceptors closing on the raider vessels. The Corax ships tried to respond, but they were clearly confused. They hadn't expected resistance, and certainly not from a resort ship. Railguns charged and locked, Tactical announced. Target their engines only. Precision shots. I want them dead in space, not dead. Aye, Captain. The Indomitable fired. Even in the vacuum of space, Kreltak imagined he could hear it. 2 lances of superheated metal crossed the distance in an instant. The raider vessel's engines exploded in brilliant flashes. Direct hits. Enemy vessels disabled. Interceptors, maintain perimeter. Don't let them launch escape pods yet. Marines, you're cleared for boarding action. Get those hostages out. Another panel retracted and Kreltak saw what had been hidden behind it. An entire deployment bay with armed soldiers in power armor. They launched in boarding craft toward the Celestial Dawn. The entire operation took 18 minutes. The Marines breached the passenger liner, neutralized the raiders, and secured the hostages. Not a single additional casualty. The raider vessels floated helplessly, their crews detained. The Celestial Dawn was safe. In operations, the crew worked with calm efficiency, coordinating rescue efforts, treating wounded, and arranging transport for the traumatized passengers. Santos finally relaxed slightly. Stella, begin powering down combat systems. Return to hospitality mode. Acknowledged. All guests have been secured in the arena and are receiving refreshments and entertainment while they wait. Several are quite excited by the situation. Santos laughed tiredly. Of course they are. Nothing like a combat operation to liven up a vacation. She turned to Kreltak. Now you know our secret, Ambassador. The Starbound Palace is a fully functional resort. It's also still the Indomitable, ready to defend herself and anyone near her. We never lied. We just didn't volunteer all the details. Kreltak didn't know what to say. His suspicions had been correct, but the reality was even more impressive than he'd imagined. This will cause a political incident. Probably. But those hostages are alive. I can live with some angry politicians if that's the price. The Galactic Council will demand explanations. Santos met his eyes. And we'll give them, along with the footage of 200 people who won't die today because we were here. Let the Council debate all they want. Meanwhile, we'll be serving dinner in an hour. The beef Wellington is excellent. She walked away, barking orders to her crew. Around them, the Indomitable began transforming back into the Starbound Palace. Panels closed. Lights shifted. The warfare vessel disappeared behind the facade of luxury once more, but Kreltak would never forget what he'd witnessed. Humanity had turned a warship into a resort, yes, but they'd never stopped it from being a warship. That was the most human thing he'd ever seen. In the main arena, chaos had transformed into something unexpected. Excitement. Kreltak made his way there after leaving operations, wanting to see how the guests were reacting. He expected panic, anger, maybe demands to be evacuated. Instead, he found beings from dozens of species watching massive screens that showed the rescue operation in real time. A group of Thraken warriors cheered as human marines breached the celestial dawn. Quillian scholars furiously took notes on combat tactics. Even the usually reserved Silicate Collective representatives showed signs of interest, their crystalline bodies pulsing with light. Shalnix rushed over to him. Ambassador, are you all right? They said there was combat. There was, and it's over. Kreltak settled into a seat watching the screens. The humans won. Decisively. On the display, footage showed the Marine teams moving through the passenger liner. They wore power armor that made them look twice their normal size, but they moved with surprising gentleness when dealing with hostages. A human soldier carefully picked up a small child, some species Kreltak didn't recognize, and carried the terrified being to safety. Another Marine provided medical treatment to an injured Vryn passenger. They're good at this, Shalnix observed. Very good. Too good, Kreltak muttered. This wasn't improvised. They've trained for this scenario. A human staff member approached with a tray. Refreshments, Ambassador. We have Vryn spiced tea and some pastries that should be compatible with your digestion. The contrast was surreal, watching combat footage while being served tea and cookies. But Kreltak accepted gratefully. The tea was perfect, exactly the right temperature and spice blend. Attention, guests. Stella's voice rang out, back to her cheerful tone. I'm pleased to announce that all hostages from the Celestial Dawn have been successfully rescued. The raiders have been detained and will be turned over to proper authorities. The Indomitable, the Starbound Palace, will be returning to our scheduled position shortly. Thank you for your patience. Applause broke out across the arena. Not just polite applause, but genuine enthusiasm. The Thraken warriors were particularly vocal, their deep voices booming approval. The screens shifted to show Captain Santos addressing the crew. Excellent work, everyone. Textbook operation. Medical teams prioritize the wounded passengers. I want them receiving care within 10 minutes. Security, make sure those raiders are properly secured. And someone tell the kitchen staff we're going to have about 140 extra guests for dinner. Let's show them some hospitality. More applause. Kreltak noticed tears on some faces. Beings whose species would be on that passenger liner, perhaps. They understood how close those people had come to dying. A Quillian delegate approached Kreltak. Her name was Scholar Teshni, and she specialized in military history. Ambassador, you witnessed the operation directly? I did. Fascinating. The efficiency, the coordination. This wasn't a civilian crew playing at military operations. These are trained warriors operating a fully functional warship. Yes. The implications are troubling. If humanity can disguise military vessels as civilian craft, what prevents other species from doing the same? It undermines the entire concept of neutral civilian space. Kreltak had been thinking the same thing. We should discuss this at the council. Agreed, though. Teshni's tentacles gestured at the celebrating guests. Public opinion may complicate matters. The humans just saved hundreds of lives. That carries significant weight. Over the next 2 hours, the Celestial Dawn passengers were transferred to the Starbound Palace. Kreltak watched from an observation deck as shuttle after shuttle arrived. The passengers looked traumatized, exhausted, but alive. Human medical staff met each shuttle, offering treatment, comfort, and guidance. One shuttle carried mostly children, a school group from several species apparently on a cultural exchange trip. They emerged scared and crying. Human crew members knelt to their level, speaking softly, offering stuffed animals and warm blankets. Within minutes, some of the children were actually smiling. They're good at this too, Shalnik said quietly. Not just fighting, but caring. Humans contain multitudes, Kreltak replied. It's what makes them dangerous. They can be warriors and healers in the same breath. Later that evening, Captain Santos made an announcement inviting all guests, including the rescued passengers, to a special dinner service. No charge, she said. You've been through enough. Let us take care of you. The main dining hall was packed. Kreltak found himself seated near a family from the Celestial Dawn, 2 adults and 3 children of the Pelter species. The children stared at everything with wide eyes, still processing their ordeal. A human server approached their table. His name tag read Miguel. He smiled warmly. Welcome. Tonight's menu has options from 30 different worlds. For the young ones, might I suggest the Terran chicken fingers? They're very popular with children. The smallest Pelter child, probably equivalent to a human 6-year-old, spoke in a tiny voice. Are we safe now? Miguel knelt down, meeting the child at eye level. You're absolutely safe. This ship has the best shields in the galaxy, the best crew, and nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to hurt you here. Captain's orders. Promise? I promise. In fact, after dinner, if your parents say it's okay, I can show you where we keep the fighter craft. Would you like that? The child nodded eagerly, fear already fading. Kreltak watched this interaction and understood something important. The humans hadn't just converted a warship into a resort. They'd created something that could be both, switching between roles as needed, a sword that could also be a shield, a fortress that welcomed guests. The food arrived, and it was exceptional. Whatever else could be said about humans, they took hospitality seriously. The rescued passengers ate hungrily, probably their first real meal since the attack. Human staff moved among the tables, checking on everyone, offering desserts and drinks, treating trauma victims like honored guests. Ambassador Chen appeared at Kreltak's table. May I sit? Please. She settled into a chair, looking tired but satisfied. I imagine you have questions. Many. But first I want to acknowledge something. Your crew saved hundreds of lives today. That matters more than political complications. Thank you, though I suspect the political complications are about to become significant. You're not wrong. The Council will demand answers. Some species will call this deception. Chen sighed. We told the truth. The Starbound Palace is a fully licensed, fully functional resort. We passed every inspection. Met every civilian standard. We just didn't remove the military systems. Technically, we never said we did. That's a thin distinction. Maybe. But here's the reality, Ambassador. We spent billions converting this ship, trained hundreds of crew members, created something unique in the galaxy. Did you really think we'd make it helpless? Did anyone honestly believe humans would build a massive luxury resort and just hope nothing bad would ever happen? Kreltak had to admit she had a point. No, I suppose not. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's very human. Maybe it's manipulative or deceptive from some perspectives. But those passengers over there? She gestured at the rescued beings. They're alive because we prepared. I can live with being called deceptive if that's the price. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Captain Santos entered, still in her tactical uniform, surrounded by some of the rescued passengers. They were thanking her, some crying with gratitude. She looked uncomfortable with the attention but accepted it gracefully. One of the Peltar parents approached Santos, holding their smallest child. Through a translator, they said, "You saved my baby. All our babies. How can we ever repay you?" Santos touched the child's head gently. "Keep them safe. Raise them well. Tell them that even in darkness someone will come to help. That's payment enough." Watching this scene, Kreltak felt his perspective shifting. Yes, the humans had been less than fully honest about their ship's capabilities. Yes, there would be political consequences. But they'd also demonstrated something important: power used in service of protecting the innocent. The Vryn understood strength. They respected warriors, but they'd always kept warfare and daily life separate. Humans seemed to blend them seamlessly, soldiers who could fight brutally one moment and serve tea gently the next. "The Galactic Council meets in 3 days," Kreltak said to Chen. "You should prepare a statement. Already working on it." "Will the Vryn support us?" He considered carefully. His people valued honesty, but they also valued results. "I will recommend that we support your actions in this specific incident. The broader questions about military vessels disguised as civilian craft, those will require longer discussion." "That's fair." Chen stood, offering a traditional Vryn gesture of respect. Four-armed salute. "Thank you, Ambassador. Enjoy your dinner." As she walked away, Shalnix leaned close. "You're supporting them?" "I'm acknowledging reality. Humans have shown us something today, not just their military capability. We already knew they were formidable. They showed us their philosophy. They refuse to be only one thing. Resort or warship. Warriors or hosts, they're both and they make it work. Is that wisdom or madness?" Kreltak watched Captain Santos talking with rescued passengers, Miguel serving dessert to frightened children, and human crew members who had been soldiers an hour ago, now acting as waiters. Perhaps it's both. And perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needed. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with arguments. 1 week had passed since the incident at Celestia Prime, and every delegate seemed to have an opinion. Kreltak sat in his designated area, listening to the chaos and feeling very tired. "This is unacceptable," roared the craven delegate, his multiple heads speaking in unison. "Humans converted a military vessel and claimed it was civilian. This violates the spirit of galactic peace accords." "They saved lives," countered the Pelta representative, her voice shaking with emotion. "My nephew was on that ship. He's alive because of human intervention. The method doesn't justify the deception," argued scholar Teshni. "If every species begins hiding weapons on civilian vessels, neutral space becomes meaningless." The debate had raged for hours. Some supported humanity's actions. Others condemned them. The chamber was divided almost evenly, which meant nothing would be resolved quickly. High Arbiter Zex then, leader of the council, raised his primary manipulator for silence. The ancient being's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Enough. We will hear from the human delegation. Ambassador Chen, please present your statement." Chen rose, composed despite the hostile atmosphere. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity wishes to address the concerns raised about the UCNS Indomitable, now known as the Starbound Palace." She activated a holographic display. "When we announced our conversion project, we stated we were transforming a military vessel into a resort and entertainment complex. This was and remains true. The Starbound Palace is a fully licensed civilian facility. We passed every required inspection by neutral third parties. Every system meets or exceeds commercial standards. But you kept the weapons," someone shouted. "We retained defensive and offensive capabilities, yes," Chen acknowledged calmly. "At no point did we claim otherwise. Review the transcripts from our announcement. We said we converted the vessel. We never said we removed its ability to defend itself." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Chen continued. "Human history taught us hard lessons about being unprepared. We've learned that peace requires strength to maintain. When we invested billions of credits and years of work into the Starbound Palace, we decided it would be foolish to make it helpless." She changed the display to show legal documents. "Every weapon system on the Starbound Palace is properly registered with the Galactic Military Registry. Our crew maintains both civilian hospitality licenses and military certifications. The ship carries insurance for both commercial operations and defensive actions. Legally, we are in full compliance." "Technically legal, perhaps," Teshni said, "but morally questionable. You created a military vessel disguised as a civilian target. No, Chen corrected. We created a civilian vessel that refuses to be a victim. There's a difference. The Starbound Palace doesn't pretend to be helpless to lure attackers. It simply doesn't advertise its capabilities to every passing ship. Another delegate spoke up. But this sets a dangerous precedent. What prevents others from hiding warships as civilian craft? Chen smiled slightly. Nothing prevents it, and frankly, it probably happens already. The difference is we're being transparent about what we've done after demonstrating why it matters. We're not hiding anymore. We're showing the galaxy that civilian doesn't have to mean defenseless. She pulled up new footage on the display. This is what happened after the rescue operation. The passengers from the Celestial Dawn received medical care, counseling, and free accommodations. Traumatized children were given toys and comfort. Injured beings got the best treatment available. We didn't just save lives, we took care of them afterward. The footage showed human crew members working tirelessly. Medical staff treating wounds, counselors helping traumatized passengers, kitchen staff preparing meals for dietary requirements, engineers repairing damaged personal belongings. The contrast between the brutal efficiency of the combat operation and the gentle care afterward was striking. Humans contain contradictions, Chen said. We can be warriors and healers, protectors and hosts. We refuse to choose between strength and kindness. The Starbound Palace represents this philosophy. It's a place where beings from all species can relax, enjoy themselves, and feel absolutely safe, because it has the capability to guarantee that safety. She looked around the chamber. 243 beings are alive today because the Starbound Palace was there and capable of helping. I will not apologize for that. I will not apologize for building something that can protect innocent lives while also bringing different cultures together. High Arbiter ZX then leaned forward. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't use this vessel for military aggression? The same guarantee you have for any species with military capability, Chen replied. Treaties, mutual interest, and the fact that attacking civilian populations would unite the entire galaxy against us. The Starbound Palace exists to protect and host, not to conquer. She paused, then added, but I'll be honest. If raiders attack civilians near our vessel, we will intervene. If pirates threaten innocent lives, we will respond. If anyone attempts to harm guests under our care, we will defend them with every weapon at our disposal. That's not aggression. That's responsibility. The chamber fell silent. Chen had essentially admitted the ship would act as both resort and guardian, and she seemed completely unapologetic about it. Kreltak rose to speak. High Arbiter, may I offer the Vryn perspective? Proceed, Ambassador Kreltak. My people are warriors. We understand strength and respect those who wield it effectively. What humans have done with the Starbound Palace is not deception, it's adaptation. They took a tool designed for war and found a way to use it for peace while maintaining the ability to protect that peace. He gestured at the display showing rescued passengers. I was present during the incident. I watched human crew members transform from hospitality staff to soldiers in minutes. I saw combat efficiency that would impress any military force, but I also saw those same humans comforting frightened children afterward, serving meals to traumatized families, and offering shelter to beings they'd never met before. Kreltak's voice strengthened. Humans don't see contradiction where we do. They see synthesis. A warrior who cannot show mercy is just a brute. A host who cannot defend guests is negligent. The Starbound Palace combines both, and perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs. The Vryn support humanity's actions in this instance, he concluded. We propose that the Council formally recognize the Starbound Palace as a dual-purpose vessel, civilian resort, with military defensive capability. Create a new classification if needed, but punishing humans for saving lives seems counterproductive. Several delegates spoke in support. The Peltar representative stood with tears in her eyes. My family is alive because of the Starbound Palace. I don't care what you call the ship. I care that it was there when we needed help. Even Scholar Teshny, who had criticized the humans, seemed conflicted. I still have concerns about precedent, but I cannot deny the positive outcome in this case. High Arbiter Zex then conferred with the Council leadership for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. The Galactic Council will vote on the following resolution. The UCNS Indomitable, operating as the Starbound Palace, acted within legal parameters when defending civilian lives. While the Council encourages transparency regarding vessel capabilities, no laws were broken. The incident will not result in sanctions against humanity. However, he continued, the Council will establish new guidelines for dual-purpose vessels. Any ship operating in civilian capacity while maintaining military systems must register as such and follow specific protocols. This applies to all species equally. The vote was called. After some deliberation, the resolution passed with a substantial majority. Chen nodded gracefully. Humanity accepts these terms, will comply with all new guidelines, and appreciate the Council's wisdom in recognizing the complexity of the situation. As the session ended, Kreltak approached Chen in the corridor outside. Congratulations. That could have gone much worse. Thanks to your support, Chen said. The Vrin carry significant weight in military matters. Your endorsement helped. I spoke the truth. Nothing more, he paused. Although I'm curious about one thing. How many other human vessels have similar capabilities? Chen's smile was enigmatic. That would be telling, Ambassador. Let's just say humanity believes in being prepared. I thought as much. Kreltak couldn't help but laugh. Your species is either brilliant or insane, why not both? Over the following weeks, something interesting happened. Bookings for the Starbound Palace tripled. Beings from across the galaxy wanted to experience the resort that could fight back. Some came for the novelty. Others came because they genuinely felt safer knowing their vacation destination could protect them. The human staff handled the increased attention with their usual efficiency. Stella cheerfully managed reservations while maintaining combat readiness. Captain Santos supervised both hospitality operations and tactical drills. The crew seamlessly switched between serving cocktails and maintaining weapon systems. Kreltak returned for a second visit. Br.